Welcome to the Majestic View. I am Zaakirah with the Majestic View from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lia World Traveler with the Majestic View from Jamestown, Rhode Island.
Great. And today we have Pamela Marshall here as well, but she is sending her well wishes until she gets technical difficulties resolved. So today we are talking about why is waking up so hard to do? Why does love hurt so much? And how does it affect our mental health? I probably would have more experience because I actually got divorced in the pandemic. Like as soon as the pandemic started, my divorce finalized. And when I tell you that was rough, that was rough. But thanks to a lot of personal development, I made it to the other side. So today we're going to talk about how do you make it to the other side? How do you find love again? How do you find your self-esteem again? And how do you get your finances back up again? So, Lia, what is your eh, definition of the word divorce?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, to me, I guess a traditional definition and the one that I guess understand is sort of the ending of a marital relationship. I mean, you can be divorced from others that are not your spouse or partner, but it's a different type of divorce because in the divorce of a marriage, the breakup of a marriage, it's more than just two people leaving one another because you basically entangled your lives in every aspect. And as you said earlier, that includes money, finances, and many other things. So, it's kind of like breaking up a business in some senses too. So my definition of divorce is sort of the ending of a relationship, but it's really kind of the loss of a vision too, because when you marry somebody or decide to be in a long-term committed partnership with someone, your vision of your future includes that person and you do life together and you have this shared vision about where you want your life to go. And when you get a divorce, all of that's gone and it changes. It doesn't mean that you still don't want the same things that you had wanted when you were in your relationship. It just looks different. So what's your definition?
Yeah, well, I think I'm glad that we started off with this question because that's actually what happened. We end up having our own definition of divorce. I think we see it a lot in TV shows where the little kids see mommy and daddy fighting, and they mean that just because mommy and daddy are fighting, that means the divorce. Not exactly. But my definition was it definitely meant the end of all ends. Like that relationship is done, point blank period. No contact, no nothing, and even more so if you don't have any access or kids together. But actually, what happens is also is even for me, I had to shift the definition a little bit, and that's the one thing that's inevitable. That but part of change is always inevitable. It happens with as you grow because there's some people that do have to co-parent too as well. So for me, I think it was just really the end of the legal side of things, but it does not have to be the end all. Because even for me, I have this unique perspective of me and my now ex-husband are good. We're cool. We're cordial. So I think that's what has to happen. Change the narrative around divorce. Like divorce does not have to mean the end all. It could be just the marriage itself that basic contact has ended.
Absolutely. And I agree with you that it doesn't always have to be contentious and bitter. I think sometimes it is because, as the song goes, it's a thin line between love and hate. So, when you really hate someone so much, it's because you love them so much and you're hurt by that person. And your partner and spouse is a person who can hurt you in a way that nobody else can. So I understand the need to do the work mentally and emotionally around giving space and respect to the process of divorcing. But I also agree with you that even if there aren't children involved, where you do have to figure out a way to co-parent, that it doesn't have to be contentious and that you can still maintain a level of respect and cordiality with one another and even a friendship in some cases, depending on the nature of the breakup. But, and so I'm encouraged to hear you say that. I also think the same is true for long-term relationships because, when you choose to be with someone for a long period of time, whether it be marriage or a long-term relationship, it's a choice. You're giving that person time that you can't get back. And I don't ever want to look at time that I've spent with another human being and regret it. I think there'll always be some level of regret, but I don't want to completely regret it because then you live with that and it doesn't impact the other person at all. So I do think that goes to the heart of, figuring out how to manage the mental health piece of coping with the loss of the relationship and the pain sometimes that's caused, even in the best of breakups.
And speaking of loss, I think I think the loss, that heartache goes unnoticed because the first thing you think about is everything that you have to split in the divorce. Because a lot of the time you're splitting the electronics, or some people they have made so many comedy movies out of it where people will split half of the sofa, half of the sofa, half of the car, half of everything. But what most people don't think about also is even no matter what the final agreement ended up being financially, it's still a loss. But most people don't even think about the loss emotionally. So, how do you think that that loss kind of ties into everything that kind of goes unnoticed?
I mean, I think it's definitely an adjustment that takes time. I mean, I remember hearing like this old adage at different points in my life where it says it takes half as long as the relationship lasted for you to get over it. So if you're with somebody for 5 years, there, if you believe that adage, it will take you 2.5 years, possibly or longer, to fully move on and be over that relationship. Even if it's easy to let go of that person, there's still baggage that you carry. There's still pieces of yourself that are still wrapped up in that former relationship and in that person. And I think that takes time. So yeah, I mean, I think the best way to do it is to just let it take the time that it needs to take. There's no right way to cope with it. There's no magic bullet or silver bullet that you can use to kind of suddenly just move on with your life. It's not so easy. Like, I think the one of the worst things that people can tell a friend or someone else who's going through the relationship is just get over it, move on. It's just never that simple. So I think the first thing is to give yourself grace and just know that it's going to take time. Um, Even if you know it's for the best, even if it's the best thing for you to be separated from this person, it's just you're basically starting over again in a lot of senses. And there's still going to be elements of them in your home. There's still going to be, pictures of them in your social media profiles. There's still going to be, their name's going to still pop up on your Netflix account or other things that, little by little, you'll have to like methodically put that out of your life. And it's just going to take time. And I think the first thing is just acceptance of that.
Absolutely. And speaking of time, I think everybody is different. There is no set time, and I've seen it very common, even religiously as well, where the way you heal is by moving on to the next person. And some people do that, and that's a okay, because everyone's time is different, and how everyone heals is different as well. Because I'm sure it's so easy to kind of judge another character of like, oh, you just got divorced and you're already dating, or oh, you just got divorced and you get married again. But at the same time, sometimes that's how people are supposed to heal. That's how they're supposed to, learn the lessons and rebuild that self esteem, because sometimes you need that other person that will be your mirror regardless. And so what do you think are the easiest ways? I think you did mention a couple of them of, be surrounding yourself with a support system. But what do you think are what would you do if you needed to rebuild your self esteem?
I mean, I have had to do that. I'm not I haven't had the experience of divorce, thankfully. I'm happily married and have been for a while, but I had my college boyfriend. I had a high school boyfriend, and those relationships were both pretty long. And what I had to do to get over those relationships was, one, as I said, give it the time that it needs to take. I didn't rush myself if I had a bad day or I felt missing that person, because sometimes it's not all bad. I just had to work through that. And, as the Usher song long ago says, I had to let it burn on certain days because there was no way that I was going to make any calls. And I did things that brought me joy and fulfillment. So I didn't necessarily jump into dating right away, because I knew that there was work that I needed to do on myself to get myself right mentally and emotionally. I was not closed to it. So like if the right opportunity came along, or I really clicked with somebody, we vibed, and I felt like, I'm willing to go on a date with this person, I would go. But I wasn't like forcing it. I wasn't looking for that, because I knew that there was no other person that was going to be able to give me what I needed to heal. I needed to do that for myself. So I surrounded myself with friends, loved ones, as you said, and I said earlier, the network of support. I did the things that I like doing that just automatically make me happy. I always had music around. Music is my therapy in a lot of ways. I love singing, so I was always like singing the songs that I like, playing the music that I like, doing the things that I liked. Exercise really helped me out because it just works out a lot of stress and frustration and like negative headspace. Even though sometimes I procrastinate like crazy and don't want to do it, I'm always so happy when I do, because it makes me just feel accomplished in so many ways. And just the endorphins of exercising brings positive feelings that last for a while. And also it ends up making you look better. So it's like it all is good. There's nothing wrong with it. And those are some of the things that I tried to do. And I tried to not give space or time to those people in my life anymore because they were no longer worthy of my attention. So I tried to, actively just move on in other ways, focus on what was in front of me one day at a time, one footstep in front of the other. I wasn't looking at 5 years. I wasn't even thinking about a year ahead. I just took each day as it came. Sometimes there were harder days than others. And then one day I was okay. I
Yeah,
just, okay.
yeah.
What
One
about you?
day.
I mean, you went through something tough. I mean, I'm not gonna let you skirt on over that. I mean, you went through a divorce right before the pandemic, which was one of the hardest times for anybody, in recent history. So, I mean, what did you do to not only cope with the divorce, but also then rolling straight into a pandemic where you are isolated from your support system in many ways? Yeah, we have Zoom, but it's not the same as being able to get a hug from your best friend, or, going out and having a good bite to eat and have that happy, positive distraction. What did you do?
No, it was tough because my top love language is physical touch. But
Mm.
I am grateful that I was able to move back in with my parents as soon as the divorce was finalized. But like I said, it wasn't the same thing because I was also still used to actually a little bit of a backstory. The closer we ended up getting to getting divorced, we never saw each other. I was working two jobs, he was in school and working, and so we never saw each other anyway. So in a way, I was kind of prepared for just that loneliness anyway, because what happened was we self filed for divorce. Like you could do that in Tennessee, where if you don't have any assets together, you can waive court, you can waive fees, you can waive custody, financial support, all of that. So we filed, and so that took 3 months from the time that it's like, okay, this is happening to the actual divorce actually being processed, which actually finalized literally the first day of the pandemic, March 17th, 2020. And so I stayed on Zoom, definitely. There were a lot of, free online community, just entrepreneurial. I want to be woman to woman, just let me talk to another woman, not necessarily one who's been through a divorce, but just someone who's where I want to be. There's someone who, as a matter of fact, one of the there's actually someone who I invested in her community for entrepreneurial work back in 2018. But then she just her book is about to come out. It's called Nothing Is Missing, called by Nicole Walters. And little did I know that we were actually going through a divorce at the same time. But it was still just kind of tough where you have to really take your time with sharing your story on the fact that you can. Most people don't even know that you can actually self file for a divorce and just be like, okay, it's finished. And but also, I think fast forward a year later, well, two things happened. At one point I did say I need to get out of my parents' house. I need to be around other entrepreneurs, or I need to be around my brothers and my sisters. So this was in Tennessee. I left Tennessee and went to Atlanta, Georgia for about 6 months. But while I was in Atlanta, Georgia, I connected with another woman on Zoom. We actually, it went from WhatsApp to a Zoom and then to a personal development program. And so she's like, "Hey, I've been divorced too, and I see you, and I know that this is just, you know, that tunnel. You can't see the end of the tunnel right now, but I see you." And so she really just invited me to attend the personal development workshop, and so that opened up another door of more entrepreneurial community. And so one, just kind of surrounding myself with where I want to be. And I journaled a lot too. Journaled a lot. I definitely heard a lot of music. I had all the music. Actually, the music that kept me going was Tony Braxton. Tony Braxton kept me going. At that time, Ariana Grande had released an album. It was shortly after she was trending in the news because somebody brought a gun to one of her London shows, and so she had it. She too was just her next album was all about grief. So I was like relating to Ariana Grande, and then who else? Oh, Brandy released her seventh studio album. I had that on repeat.
Yeah.
So having my set playlist that just kind of kept me going, journaling, and definitely investing in personal development. And I want to before we do that, I want to Um, say if you have been watching, thank you for watching. This is the Majestic View Show where we are welcoming a seat at the table. We talk about all of the views that you don't get to talk about that often. And if you are a person of color, you are welcome to join the show, especially if you work in media, you work in tech, and you're ready to talk about what people don't often talk about. And this show was started by four of us. There's four of us all together. There's Fumi, there's Pamela, who you're going to see in just a millisecond, and myself and Leah. And without further ado, let's see if Pamela is ready.
There she is.
Can we hear you? Yes, we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wow. It's really interesting. Ladies, I've been able to listen to the conversation and it's been really good. But what's so funny is, Leah, before you went on, I said to Zaakirah, she called me, I said, my stomach is in knots thinking about talking about this. So I want to talk, I want to say that the power of the mind is powerful. And I think my body was allowing me not to be a part of this for a minute because something that happened that has never happened. The camera didn't work. And that's never happened to me. So I've been trying to figure out how to get StreamYard, the software, on another phone. Relationships, when you think about how much time we spend in our lives, either getting in a relationship, getting out of a relationship, and trying to get over a relationship. That's a huge chunk of your life. Or maintaining a relationship. And the fact that we don't spend enough time talking about who we're getting in the relationship with is very unfortunate because there's so much hurt and pain as a result of these major life decisions that impact so much of your life. I'm older than both of you ladies, and I remember at 50, I was sitting in my living room and I thought, wow, if I had all the time back that I spent either trying to get in, trying to maintain, trying to get out of, what would my life have been like? And I hope at some point we can talk about us as women being whole, with or without. I think it's wonderful when you are in a good, healthy, wholesome relationship, but also recognizing when it's not. And it is okay to let go and be your whole self. Don't ever lose who you are going in them. Lord, I could talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
I got married the first time when I was 18 years old. The first
Okay, tell
time.
that story.
Uh-uh.
Well,
Oh,
as
we
you well
got.
know,
Sorry, I
I've
was
written
talking
a
to my
book on
daughter.
art
She's next to me, so that
Yeah.
leave you for a second.
forgiveness and
Okay.
peace.
But Pamela's a little buffer.
And
She's
I
a little
think
delayed, so I'm gonna keep the show going while we got different things
that
going
there are
on.
things that
Okay.
have that in these decisions that we
All right. So
I'm back.
Pamela, you're really buffered and you're frozen. So if you can hear me, you may have to stop
and
your video for a second.
there's so many people.
Your audio is compromised too, Pamela. It's like choppy sounding.
And this is how we do it through technical difficulties, through family, through all of it.
Yes, we do, because we're the Majestic View, but we're also very real human beings, and life happens regardless of when we're trying to do things. So we just got to roll with the punches like you would in any other thing. So this is
Exactly.
no exception. Our show is very
Exactly.
real in real time.
Pamela, are you back? No, not yet. Okay. Well, before she was about to get into the story, I think that was an important moment that she kind of mentioned. I feel like this may be that note-taking moment for everyone. But how would you be able to say that you see another woman? That you know that she's not whole and complete but you see her. What would you say to a woman right now who's probably listening to this and needs that message? What would you say, Lia?
Oh, I mean, that's a tough call to make. I mean, I think being whole is aspirational. It's something that we all strive to achieve, but we're always maybe falling short on one aspect or another. It's something that we should always try to do. So I kind of feel like when you're looking at any woman, there's going to be some element or some aspect in her life, in her spirit, or something that's going on that is less than 100 for her. It's not exactly where she wants it to be, but like connects with like. You'll feel and there's just an energy, an understanding that I think goes beyond just the visible world. It's more of a spiritual connection, I think, that we have as women with one another. We're just more intuitive by nature. I think you can sense when something is going on with with another woman, especially the women that are closest to you, because not only do you have that intuition, but you know each other. So when I'm having an off day. I know when you're having an off day, and you should just create space for them to let you know. Or if you don't want to push them to speak to you, because sometimes people need time to process their own feelings. They don't even know what they're feeling, let alone to be able to communicate that to you. But just let them know that you're always there without judgment, ready to listen to them, ready to support them, whatever they need. And I think sometimes that's all a woman needs, is to know she's not alone, know she's got someone who's in her corner, and someone who will not, judge her or, reject her because she's experiencing certain things.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. We
Okay.
don't see anything yet, though.
Yeah, yeah. Don't worry about that. I appreciate just Leah.
Sorry, she's really trying me. So she just had to go to her room. Anyway,
Leah,
please go on.
Leah, we got to see a black mama face.
Yeah, the eyes, right? I was popping them like I was going to kill her, and the daggers came out of the eyes and snapped back in. Yeah.
Have you heard people talking about how their mother can be talking to them and they say this really, really really firm stuff, and then they go back to the phone? Yeah, honey. Yeah.
Exactly.
I can be there tomorrow. Yes.
Yes, that's exactly what that was, and I do not care. So they're gonna have to learn today.
Go, mamas.
Oh gosh.
Okay,
Well,
so it's story time. We'll listen to story time. Tell us your divorce story.
no. Which one?
Or how about you just say what you want to say?
Okay.
We're talking about sort of dealing with, your emotional mental health in a post breakup situation. And Zaakirah shared some of what she did to kind of work through her period of divorce right into the beginning of the pandemic. And I shared a little bit about what I did to get over my long-term relationships before my current relationship. So maybe we start there and you share what you did to kind of move through those periods of your life.
Yeah, and it's been a number of times, unfortunately, and you know, the good thing is when I'm going through things, I don't like to eat or drink. Otherwise, I could be a very heavy alcoholic, like a big size alcoholic. Um, and I think too, because work was always a big part of my life, so I was still working. But someone explained it to me once that even though it's difficult in relationships, and you might know that the relationship needs to end, but because you've grown together emotionally, anytime there's that break, you may know that it needs to end, but because and they described it to me as, imagine tearing the skin off your finger. It's going to hurt. I remember once backing out of the driveway crying so hard that if you had seen me crying that hard, you would have been saying, "Why are you leaving?" But I knew it needed to happen. And so when it was explained to me that we had grown together in areas of our lives, but I also like to think of it based on the scripture in Jeremiah. I know the plans that I have for you, plans to prosper you, and for you to be in good health and be well. And so when we're in those relationships that are not in line with what the creator has for us, when we're in relationships where the person is asking you to do something that the one that controls your breath does not require, I mean, I think that's a sign. But Zaakirah, I grew up Pentecostal, and divorce was not part of our lives. And I know that you're Muslim, and so how difficult was that for you from a faith-based perspective?
Yeah, well, actually, for me, that's a great question because for me, it wasn't more religious; it's more cultural of my definition of divorce. Because even in the Holy Book of for Islam, divorce is highly recommended, especially if it's an extreme situation of extreme oppression and extreme abuse and extreme situations. Divorce is allowed. Um, but for me, it was I grew up in a blended family, and I saw I saw my parents get divorced at one point, and get back together, and I've seen I have half siblings from other previous marriages and relationships, and so I made up in my mind based on what I saw as a child. I only want to get married once. So it's more cultural than religious because even religiously, divorce is allowed, especially in extreme situations. So um, yeah, I think that plays a huge role too of what we start growing up to what we define in our relationship, no matter what kind of breakup it is.
Yeah, and I think so. We have McLinda, who is a Manning there, and then Josette in Texas, McLinda
Hi,
in
ladies.
Gainesville, Florida. Great topic, she says. They're um, and they're people who stay together for children.
Hmm.
And then when they do decide to get a divorce, they're shocked sometimes when their children will say to them, I don't know why it took you all this long.
Exactly. I mean, most popular literature that I've seen on this topic says it's never a good idea just to stay together for the kids because even though you're trying to maintain an intact family environment, I've always believed, also I'm a child of divorce like Zaakirah, I've always believed that if my parents are happier and better human beings apart, then they'll be better parents to their children rather than being miserable and together. The home is going to be miserable. Whether they try to hide the misery and the strife that they're experiencing, kids know. They may not know exactly what is going on, but they know that something isn't right. So I don't always think that that's the best decision. I understand as a parent why parents make that decision and they sacrifice their own kind of romantic life for that of their children. But I don't think it improves the family dynamic for the children. And I don't think that it models the kind of relationships that parents would hope that their children could have.
Does it make it any, um, how difficult is it? Is it more difficult, do you think, when there's another person involved with why there's the breakup?
Like cheating, you mean?
Like cheating.
I think yes, because um, when you choose to be in a relationship at any time, especially married, you're choosing it usually for the long run. Most people don't get married to say, okay, I'm only going to be married for like 5 years. So then that's time investment, that's emotional investment, that's spiritual investment. So then when that investment is what looks like from the woman's perspective being given away, it does kind of make things a little harder. I would say, because if you're not already thinking of the psychology of a man, there are more women on this earth than man, and man is not most men aren't born to be monogamous. So when you have that psychology in mind, it makes it a little easier. But 9 out of 10 times, that's why, especially amongst our community, now it's just really hard because oh look, Pamela got a photo, but it's really hard because we kind of have that mentality of already just having the man be taken away from us anyways, regardless, just from generational curses on down. So that's I think that it does kind of add to it, especially if the divorce is as a result of another party being involved.
Well, you know what? As I mentioned, having written
Oops,
this
sorry,
book
we got a
on,
long message coming in. Great topic. Leah explained well. Children can end up resenting their parents and have their emotional intelligence stunting because the environment provided is one produced by two people surviving and not thriving. Absolutely. Thank you, Ricardo.
Yeah, surviving and not thriving.
That is perfect. I agree 100% with Ricardo's point.
Well, then we have to ask the question then, are people using the children as an excuse
I
to
think in some
stay?
cases, I mean, there's no cut and dry and there's no, it's not a zero sum game. In some cases, absolutely they are, because one of the things Zaakirah and I were speaking about earlier too is that divorce is scary. Even if the relationship is done and you know that you don't want to be with each other anymore, the work that it takes to get divorced is sometimes really overwhelming. And it's easier sometimes just to stay. You always hear cheaper to keep her, those types of comments. There's some truth to it. You really are, you're not only dissolving the relationship, it's almost like you're dissolving a corporation because of all the legal ties that exist between the two parties, financial ties, if you have children, if you have property, if you have shared assets. Then it's like, okay, well, what have you accumulated since you've been together? What did you accumulate before? You're paying for lawyers. It just gets very, very complicated. And many people don't want to deal with that. So instead of actually just accepting that that is the road to freedom and moving on to the next chapter, they instead choose to stay because it's easier, but it also is making them more miserable. So it's really not, it's the lesser of two evils, really. Neither choice is ideal, but I think that is what holds some people back. And they use the children as an excuse because it's easier to say that. People will understand that than someone saying, oh, I just don't want to deal with it. I don't want to do the paperwork. I'm too lazy, or whatever the point is that they have. It's easier to just say you're staying together for the kids.
Yeah, all of the things that you talked about are an issue. But, when you get remarried, the thing that was really challenging was combining the junk drawer. Yeah, everybody's got a junk drawer, right?
Show do.
So, so, and I liken the junk drawer to our emotional junk too. If we have not sorted through all of the previous stuff that's happened in our lives, not only do we have to combine the junk drawer, we have to combine the emotional junk. And someone gifted me a book, Saving Your Second Marriage Before It Starts. And there's some great conversation starters in that book. Um, and I also interviewed my uncle who passed during COVID, Bishop Lois Marshall. He and his wife had been married for I don't know how many years, a long, long time. And I asked him, I said, what do you see as the key to the longevity of your marriage with Aunt Bert? And he said, you throw out the issue, you don't throw out the people. And I said, well, why didn't you make that announcement at the family reunion about 30 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a whole word right there.
I know. You throw out the issue, you don't throw out the people. So I wonder how many relationships could be salvaged if we worked at throwing out the issue and not the people.
And I wanna throw in the other, like I hear the point, but I also am thinking about the psychology of environment and culture, right? Where if you were if you were not raised to problem solve, there's a difference also, especially when those who will suppress the problems, right? Suppress them, not talk about them, and not even create a resolution for them. That also kind of contributes towards those effects as well. Like, right? Because then you have that uneven party of there is someone who was raised on an understanding of, you fight the problem, don't fight each other, right? But then there's also those who are like, oh, okay, well, I know that I have options. I've seen, people in my family get divorced. I know that I don't have to be in this situation. And there's always one foot in and one foot out. And I feel like there's cultural and environmental and psychological standpoints that come with once you do get to that decision of divorce. A lot of it plays a role. Like it could have been, someone literal last straw too of like we've been fighting the same problem over and over and over. And so now then you have to make that decision for yourself. I'm gonna do it for myself, not for the kids. I'm gonna do it for myself, not for my family. Because once you do get married, you do marry into your family. Most people don't talk about that either.
Mm-hmm. As a
I
matter of
also
fact,
wanted to throw in something on the heels of what Zaakirah said, and also dovetailing with your anecdote about your uncle's advice that he gave you, because it reminded me of something that my grandmother always told me before I lost her. And it's been a while now since I did, but it stuck with me because she and my grandfather were married for a really long time before she passed away, like probably 70 years, if not more. And of course, they're from a different generation. So, I mean, relationships look different now, but I also don't think there's a lot of difference. I think it's just people's expectations have changed. But saying all that to say that her advice was, when you enter into a relationship with someone, go in with both eyes open. Look and see and understand who you are with, so that once you get married, you can close one eye.
Ooh.
So that always stuck with me,
Oh,
because I understood
interesting.
that to mean like you're entering into a relationship without the commitment of marriage yet. So you can look for the red flags, look for the behaviors, patterns, and negativity, things that you don't like or you don't rock with. Decide if you can tolerate some of those things, because some things you aren't going to change. But when you get married, if you were willing to accept those things dating, then you have to let that go in marriage too. You can't suddenly take issue with your partner doing X or Y when it was all good when you were dating. And if you didn't express or bring that up while you were dating, you can't suddenly make it a problem now. So that's what I took from her advice or her saying. But what do you all perceive her words of wisdom to mean?
Josette said that's good.
I'm saying it was good, right? That's why it stuck with me all these
Yeah,
years.
it's good. It's
Okay,
good.
here comes some more real life. Watch this.
I think there is, as I am in another marriage and thinking about one of my cousins who stayed with a cousin, and I have said to her, we need to write a book based on the fact that you stayed with this cousin. Josette, you probably know what I'm talking about. You stayed with this cousin. I got married more than once, more than twice, but I still feel like the issues were not dealt with because so much of what we're dealing with is about the person eyes in the mirror. So that's why I said trying to combine two junk drawers, emotional junk drawers, is something that I think that we don't give enough attention to prior to saying I do. We think that all of the superficial stuff is going to take care of the junk drawer, and it's not going to. So, are you prepared to close that one eye?
I think that's the perfect way to to mic drop. Leave that question, for people to think about. And if you are this is your first time tuning in to the Majestic View Show, thank you for watching. We are a show by women for the BIPOC community. At this point, we've got some amazing guests who have just been tuning in with their comments, and thank you for tuning in with your comments. And be sure to tune in next Wednesday. We're talking mental health all throughout the month of May. And be sure to follow us on each other's platforms. So I am Zaakirah Muhammad from the See Life Different Media Group. And I am here with a majestic view from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Hi, everybody. Sorry for all my life today. It was a special episode for me, Lia World Traveler. And you can basically find me across social media at Lia World Traveler on every platform. On Twitter, I'm at Lia World Travels. And I think the last thing that I want to say is with respect to, getting over a relationship ending after a long time is you just have to focus on yourself. Focus on your own needs first. Everybody's going to come with their advice. Everyone's going to have their preferred course of action for you to take, but you need to listen to yourself and trust your instincts, because they led you to the conclusion that the relationship was no good for you, and they won't steer you wrong as you figure out what your next steps are. So I'll leave it there, and thank you again for tuning in. And I'm Lia World Traveler with the Majestic View from Jamestown, Rhode Island.
And I'm Pamela Marshall with the Majestic View from Gainesville, Florida. Don't look for healing at the feet of where you are broken. Look to the one who created you. Okay, I guess that was the end of my quote. I can't hear you.
I was saying it was good. I liked your backdrop, and I think that we're still live.
In broadcast. How about that?
Yes.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. We could also do the show after the show.
Mm,
Like, you know,
yeah,
how do you think it went today?
it was chaotic. It was good. it was real. So that's really what I want out of this is that because I think I watch a lot of these types of talk shows and I listen to a lot of podcasts and they seem so scripted and they seem like everybody's so perfect and their worlds are just so fluid and they don't have any problems. That's not my reality. I'm in a real family. We have pets, kids who want to act out. You know, my phone's been dinging all this whole time. That's why I've been looking down half the time because my husband has given me a blow by blow of my son's baseball game that I chose not to go to today because I was going to do this and I have to finish my paper for school. So I just feel like that makes us more relatable because we're human beings, we're real people, and I want to have real conversations.
Yeah. And even with the technical difficulties that I'm having,
Which is
as
also
I said,
real.
yeah, it's real. And I don't know if I was trying to save myself from myself
Maybe.
because, yeah, it is hard for me to talk about that I've been married 4 times because, as someone said to me once, people are probably thinking, well, what's wrong with you? And because that does happen, not kudos for being strong enough to move on and being brave enough to do it again.
Mm-hmm. It's true. But I mean, that goes back to like social stigmas and a lot of the weight and baggage of marriages ending being blamed on women or what is she not doing to keep her man happy and this and that and blah 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 when obviously it takes two to tango. There's responsibility on both parts, but if it was meant to end, it was meant to end. And the fact that you were brave enough to seek love again, even if the love didn't work out, shouldn't be a mark on you. It should, as you said, show your courage and your willingness to open yourself up to love again. And sometimes you got to get through the bad apples to get to the good one.
Well, and it
It's a bunch
doesn't,
of frogs to
yeah,
get your prince or
yeah,
princess or
yeah,
whatever.
whatever anybody else's thoughts are, is whatever the correct verb for that is, that's on them. And
Exactly.
yeah, I don't take that in because nobody, nobody can walk in my moccasins for me. It doesn't matter what it looks like on the outside. You don't know the cost of the oil in my alabaster box, you know?
And
So,
honestly, it's nobody's business. Everybody wants to quick to point fingers at somebody else, want to judge how another person's relationship and love life are going, so quick to want to be in the tea and know the tea and share the tea. But, it's the whole glass houses, analogy. Nobody can cast a stone or should not pass judgment on another knowing good and daggone well, their own relationships and their own houses are not in order. And even if they are in order, it's still not your business. So, that's one thing that we need to learn as a people. Because I do see a little bit too much of this,
well, yeah, and just to be supportive, I have
Right.
friends who have gone through, friends and relatives who've gone through various challenges, and I like to say to them as we begin a
Oh,
conversation,
sorry, my son's calling. I'm just going to mute for a second.
okay, no problem. Whatever it is that you decide, I'm going to be here. I'm going to love you anyway. And
I'm thinking about
I
I'm
think
thinking
that's
about Tabitha Brown. Tabitha Brown. Um,
mhm.
what I'm trying to think of the correct phrase because she got two different phrases that she'll stay with the situation of if it's go on about your business. Well, she normally wrapped up a video saying something like "Go on about your business, and make it a great day, but don't go messing up nobody else's." But she also said something. It's a whole T-shirt now. I can't remember, but it's something like because that's my business. She'll say whatever she wants to say, and it's an unpopular opinion. Then she'll say because that's my business.
Yeah, yeah. But some stuff is not your business is not everybody else's business. And, as I said, if our goal is to lift each other up and sometimes hold up your arms, Zaakirah, hold up your arms, Lia, when your arms feel weak and we hold each other's arms up. I think that's the role that we play rather than pointing and ridiculing. But this was a great conversation. I really appreciate you ladies being willing to talk about this because I think it's really critical in this month of mental health awareness and how how, emotions can come with this depression and anxiety of facing this journey without that person that you committed to, and all of the other stresses that happen because you've made this major life decision to split with someone.
Yeah, and I'm actually glad we got to talk about it too, because I realized I think the last time I talked about it may have been the month of March, and then I remember even when I was talking about it, I was still getting choked up. So I'm like, wait a minute, I'm healing now. Okay.
Yep, that's why I said it. The I guess the rule that I had always been told was, for whatever the length of time the relationship was, it takes half the time or more to really get over it. So, I mean, if you're in years-long relationships with people, it's not going to be over tomorrow. It won't even be over in a month, let alone in a year. There's always going to be little things that come back. And, when you truly love somebody, you're really giving them your all, your heart and your emotional, mental energy, everything. So to really reclaim that back, it takes time. And that's why I was saying several times throughout the show that really the key is accepting it. And it's okay to have bad days where you still long for the person, miss the person, wonder what if about the person, stalk their social media. Like people, people do that. They do, but it's how you cope. It's a way of being like just working through your own feelings and processing. So, I just feel like you were saying, Pamela, I think the key is to just not pass judgment on anybody's journey. Really just try to be supportive of one another and just let people do what they need to do to move forward.
Write, journal, and go outside and smell the fresh cut grass. Just enjoy your inhales and exhales and know that you will get through it. I can testify to that.
I think that this topic has space, for future, shows, like not necessarily a specific aspect of it, but just, relationships and how do people manage and sort of I think it's interesting to think about how back in our grandparents' generations, there was this belief that once you're married for life. And Lord knows their marriages weren't perfect. They had all the same problems that we have now without the additional challenge of social media. But yet they still stayed together. So like, what is it now that makes people feel like divorce is the better preferable option? Or is it because they didn't feel like they could divorce them? Is a societal cultural norm thing? Or is it just like people just don't care anymore about the stigma that is associated with it? Because it used to be negatively associated when people would be divorced or say they were a divorcee. It carried a stigma, even though I don't believe it ever should. But our society makes all kinds of terrible mistakes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think there's a lot of interesting stuff in there that we can unpack.
Yeah, and then I think I saw a tweet floating around for some time about that. I think something about, the women today aren't going to stick by a man that's cheating on him or beating on him and financially abusing him. Because back then, it almost looked like the woman didn't have that choice. Women didn't have the freedom to work, freedom to live remotely, work remotely, and really be fully independent. And so that probably contributes to it too.
It totally does. The marriages back then were interdependent, whereas now you have marriages of equals in the sense that the same opportunities are there. So it's definitely changing the norms and expectations of the roles that each partner plays in the home and with one another. When back in the day, the husband was the breadwinner and the wife was the homemaker. And now if, we see fathers who are the homemakers and moms who are the breadwinners, or both parents are working, or, they're entrepreneurs. And so they have a more non-traditional schedule. You're seeing people waiting longer and longer later in life to have children. Whereas back in the day, everyone was having tons of kids and starting real early. So, there are definitely some societal shifts that have taken place since then, but I still wonder if there's something more to it than like the nature of, female liberation in our society in terms of maybe able to make our own money, have our own things. Because what I'm also seeing, and you two chime in, and then I think I'll go because I got to work on my paper, is like a tipping of the scales from women being fully dependent to women being perceived as so independent that they don't need a man. And now there seems to be like this reverse pendulum shift of men saying that they want submissive women and don't want this Black independent archetype of a woman, even though that's who their mama is and their sisters are. And so they're going and trying to find women who they perceive as submissive. And in a lot of cases, it's not Black women, which again, I don't have a problem with that necessarily per se. What I do have a problem with is the demonization of Black women as being undesirable or unmarriage, not marriage material, because the perception is that they're too independent or they're not going to be willing to serve their men in a way that women of other races are perceived to serve their men.
Well,
anyway.
let me just say this, Lia. My husband is white, and I think that that's another show to talk about the common thread of men, period, because I think sometimes men will marry women that are independent, and then they think they can shift. So
Yes.
that's another show. Another show is people in other cultures. Like I know some people from India, and their marriages were arranged. And I asked one of them, "How in the world do you marry somebody?" Because she met him for the first time when he came back home. He was in the States, and he went back home to marry her because the families got together, and this is who you're going to marry. And they call him up and say, "Come on home. We got somebody for you." So the first time they meet is when they get married. And I said, "How do you marry somebody that you don't love?" Now, what she said to me was, "He's a good man. He he works really hard. He loves me, and we are growing in love." Maybe that's why it lasts longer, because we have the growing in love phase 3-5 years before we get married. And by the time we get married, it's easy to get sick of this joker. Maybe, I don't know.
No, I do think there's something to that, because I mean, I don't know about you two, but I am a fan of Indian matchmaking on Netflix. Again, realizing it's a bit for entertainment, but the premise of continuing in modern times to do arranged marriages and showing success stories of people who have done them, within the last 20 years and have been married successfully for that amount of time. It is an interesting phenomena. And I do think that you're onto something with the honeymoon phase and the falling in love phase actually happening after you've already committed to each other as marital partners. Whereas, like you said, in Western societies, that courtship phase, you're not yet married. And so by the time you get there, you might be in your honeymoon phase because you're now newlyweds, but you already have gone through the courtship phase and the getting to know each other phase, which is usually one of the best parts of the relationship.
Right.
And so that's already sort of off the table by the time you get married in the States. But in those marriages, the arranged marriages, that's the first few years of their marriage. So it makes it more interesting. And they do have the opportunity to grow together because they're starting from zero.
Well, on another show, I want to talk about women having more than one husband. Okay.
Oh, Jesus, help us, Lord.
I'm cool with that because I'm tired of all these polygamous men and all this polyamorous relationship where it's really just men being with a ton of different women, but expecting that one, the ton of women to be loyal to the one man. I'm like,
oh yeah, we can talk
good for
about
the goose
it.
is good for the gander.
I just personally, at this point in my life, hey, one of my mother's friends' husband died, and she said, I asked her if she was going to get married again. She said, "No, I believe if the Lord bless you to get rid of one, He doesn't intend for you to get another one." So
that's funny.
I know.
That's really funny. I appreciate that because I always say, and I don't know if I'm just talking smack or talking, BS, but I always say that if my marriage doesn't last, I'll never marry again. I don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it. I don't. So I'm not saying I won't find a life partner or date or whatever. But I don't see myself doing that again. I just don't want to.
Right.
I just don't have the energy for it. And then I don't want to have to negotiate anymore. I think I'm also getting to the stage of life where my level of giving an F is really starting to be like, I don't give one. So I don't care. Like, I just don't. Life is too short for me to deal with the negotiation and a lot of the placation and a lot of the, making sure both interests are present in a situation. I don't want to have to do all that again. I'm in a good place now with my husband where we truly know one another and we're really good partners and there's a lot of love in our relationship too. And I also don't feel and maybe this is just me being naive and not knowing, but I also feel like if he were to pass away or I pass away or we break up for whatever reason, I just don't know that I would be able to be open to that again.
Yeah.
In the same way to build the same foundation that I've built with him. I just feel like I would just want to find someone who we can go and do fun things together, enjoy each other's company. But I don't know that I would want to make that same level of investment emotionally.
Yeah.
You know, and legally, you know. So who knows? I mean, like I said, I could just be talking out my, my bum, but that's how I feel.
And then we can follow Zaakirah's relationship. As you, so
like that.
what are your plans, Zaakirah? Are you online looking, or you're just chilling right now?
There is a guy.
Oh,
Yeah, tell us more.
oh.
Well,
We can go up live if you want privacy.
Yeah. He we did. I ended up meeting online. It is international. But you know, with technology nowadays, I feel like he's right next to me. You know, but yeah, there's a guy, and he is a Muslim, and it's a journey. I'll say that right now.
Okay, well, we can get updates on
It
that
always is.
periodically. I think that was such a good question, Pamela.
It was. I'm glad you went there, Pamela. I've always been wondering, you know, because I knew about the divorce. So I was like, it's been a while though, a couple years now. So I know she's not, you know, no more pandemic. So she can be out if she need to be.
Exactly.
No more pandemic.
Right.
Well, ladies, again, this has been good. Rich.
Yeah, we just need to try to get the foursome back for a future show. I don't know. I don't, maybe I missed it because I couldn't come on last week because I had that lecture. I don't know if Funmi joined last week, but I would think it would be nice for us all four to get back.
We miss Funmi, and we'll definitely see her on her own time. On her own time.
I mean, I know, like, we're all busy, and again, like we said, life, it's real life. So sometimes it's a juggling act.
And anybody that watches that would like to be on the show, please let us know. You may be going through a relationship and you want to talk about it, and
this may be your therapy. This may be your unofficial therapy. We're not licensed therapists, okay? But we are your girls. So
yep, and we definitely are a judgment-free zone. We're just here to talk it out and listen.
Yeah, send us an email, and we'd love for you to, you know, the scripture says, and they were overcome by the words of testimony. And so you never know who's watching or listening that might be helped by your story, your journey.
Absolutely. With that, ladies, I got to go because I'm going to get too sleepy to finish this Stagon school paper, which is due tomorrow. So,
all right. Good luck on your paper.
Thank you. See you all soon.
Zaakirah,
bye.
Take care. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye.